My story? I don't know how to begin, to be honest. I was born with wide and fearful eyes in an orphanage in Holochest. For 7 years, that institution was my home. The center's walls were old, showing the marks of time. The paint was peeling in places, and the windows, too large, had metal bars that often felt more like a prison than a playground. The distinct smell of disinfectant, combined with the hastily cooked food, filled the air every morning, and the sound of the caregivers' heels echoing through the long, dark corridors was our daily wake up call. Our rooms were simply austere. Four beds lined up in an orderly row, with white sheets and thick blankets that kept the winter cold at bay. Each bed had a small drawer where we kept our few personal belongings, a stuffed animal for some, an old book, a found photo, a handwritten note. I was born unlucky, I often told myself. My parents were wandering triage, and my guardian angel, one of my mother's sisters, was in Bucharest. She wanted to. She tried to raise me, but my parents said no and took me back home with them years later after abandoning me. They sent me to school, but every day there felt like torture. I was like a fish out of water, with all eyes on me, as if they could sense that I didn't belong there. They called me wild, and whispered behind my back, pointing at me, the crazy one from the States, some called me. They saw me as different, as if I came from another world, one where I lacked the warmth of a real family and the small securities they consider natural. Their words etched themselves deep into me, like echoes repeating day after day. In their eyes, I was a stranger, and in my impatience, sometimes my distrust, only reinforced their beliefs. I remember sometimes feeling their gazes and the hands pushing me from behind, accompanied by jiggles and the teachers passing by without offering me more than a hasty glaze. In those moments, I wanted to run, to hide, to find a corner where I wouldn't feel like a foreign piece in this puzzle. The only love I felt was around the age of 12, from another aunt in the village. She took care of me, I confided in her, I vented to her, and she taught me about the church. Thanks to her, I experienced a small piece of life so well. But surprisingly, the one who saved me died when I was 19. Her name was Elena, a name that seemed so perfectly characterized her, like a destined choice. Her hair was grey, an intermediate shade between white and black, and her physique was frail and delicate, with a small and slightly slender silhouette. She arranged her scarf with a skill that seemed to follow a silent tradition, in a way that was neither too simple nor too elaborate, like a subtle choice of balance. Her black shoes, discreet and elegant, perfectly matched her modest and refined style. She always dressed in neutral shades, avoiding bright and contrasting colors, as if she wanted to remain a discreet shadow, without standing out too much. She always seemed to blend into the atmosphere, but at the same time she had a special presence, difficult to ignore. She left this world 5 months before my 19th birthday. She didn't have time to give me my birthday gift, and even now I feel like I'm still waiting for it, as if it's something that hasn't happened yet. Every time I think about that day, I feel an emptiness in my soul as if the time has stopped and my longing to have her near remains alive. I imagine what it would have been like, how she would have smiled and hugged me, but instead all I have are memories that seem to fade with each passing day. When she died, I felt as if the branch beneath my feet had been snapped, leaving me suspended in the mid-air without any support, without any direction. It was as if an entire universe inside me was collapsing, leaving only an echo of a place that had once been full of warmth and meaning. We saved each other. She saved me from a desolate and ignorant life, and I saved her from the death of things done wrong. It was a Wednesday, the first time I saved her. A pot of boiling water had spilled on her weary legs. I applied cream and assured each other that everything would be okay. The pain seemed to subside, but in her eyes I saw a deep awareness that came from behind the wounds. They told me I had to be home, that I had responsibilities, but my heart couldn't listen. I needed her, and she needed me. Until one day I ran away from home. I went to her without thinking too much. I just felt I had to. I reached her, but I didn't fire her as I expected. That time I found her collapsed on the ground, alone and helpless. Twice I was able to save her, but the third time I couldn't. How painful. And now I relived that day when I found out she was gone. I was at my sister's house, holding one of my nephews, with the scent of a baby around me. Outside, a cold penetrating wind was blowing, making me feel the cold in every fiber of my body. However, despite the cold, I couldn't explain why I felt a sense of unease inside me, as if everything had stopped for a moment. Suddenly, I went outside as if I could feel someone calling me there, and that's exactly what happened. My sister's neighbor called me from the fence with his deep voice. He was a simple man, from a rural world, a modest man without many opportunities and without many people around him. He looked at me with his gentle eyes as if he saw more than he should, and his presence seemed to deepen the silence. But he broke the silence and uttered the hardest words that I still carry with me today. She's gone. For a moment I didn't know what world I was in, whether it was the real one or just a dream. I looked around, searching for a sign, a clue that not everything was over, that maybe it was all just a test, a trial that I would overcome. But there was nothing. Nothing, just silence. My heart was pounding, but not in the familiar sense of a normal beat. It was a heavy beat, full of deep sadness, like an echo of a lost path. Without wasting any time, I ran inside. An instinct told me I had to leave there as soon as possible. I started gathering things without any clear plan, just with a strong feeling of needing to leave. I chose to dress in red, to wear that sweet shirt of hers, because even though everything was falling apart, that object held a vivid memory of the moments when everything seemed normal. It was the only thing that connected me to what had been. Then I ran home, without any plan, without knowing exactly what I would do or what I would say. When I arrived, I found my parents at home, and in a burst of anger and pain, I shouted with all my might, "I hate you." The words came out of my mouth without thinking too much about them, as if they were going to free me from all the accumulated tension. And deep down, I hate them a little even today. Everything else has faded since then, the gifts, the kind words, and the memories, one by one. I live with the guilt of not being there when she decided to leave for good. Today, though, I live by what she taught me. My life is good and easier thanks to her. Sometimes I sit and imagine what I would say if she were here for just a second. But I would tell her to forgive me for not being there for her as I promised so many times. My mother never loved me, even though I'm her spitting image, but I felt true motherly love from Elena. She was my refuge whenever I cried, suffered, or despaired. Today I have Bella. She's another her who loves me unconditionally, without many words, just actions, and a little tail that wags whenever she sees me. She's a part of me, and I can honestly say I love her more than my mother. She was the most gift I ever received. In her I found salvation. Now Bella is a mother. She has 5 puppies and I'm so proud of her. I thanks God. I'm proud of myself. Thanks to my aunt and Bella, I'm human, I'm alive. They saved me from everything, even from life itself.